Hello and welcome to Rare Cuts Media Society, the podcast that looks at hidden media gems, where Bond is not Bond, but acts a lot like Bond, and has a Bond theme song. With your hosts, as always, I'm Andrew Jagoda, and with me we've got Eric Hathorn. How are you today, Eric?
Pretty good, except for these geese. There's always geese now. The last two episodes have centered around geese in some way, shape, or form, even though they've been very different, and I'm tired of geese.
We'll have to figure out a different bird for next time. Rob Lachik, how are you today, Rob?
I'm doing well. I agree. I don't want to see no more geese. There's too much poop all over the ground. They'd be going from the north to the south. It's too much. I can't handle it.
Goose poop.
Well, and Mike Ross, how are you today, Mike?
I'm doing all right. And now I'm really thinking I probably should have watched this third time just so I could verify if there were geese in the film, because I don't think there were.
No. During the opening song, there were
okay.
montages of geese.
The title.
The second time was too.
This one was
Honestly, all I was thinking is I wonder if this film takes place in Africa, because that is the opening credits is just the continent of Africa with clips of other things interspersed.
Yeah, they kind of gave that one away. All right. Well, if you recently watched our mini episode, you'll know that our new arc for the summer was my pick, and I decided we would each be assigned a James Bond actor. We then had to find some piece of media where that James Bond actor had a non-Bond role, or as I like to call it, a James Bond sidecar. So for this month, I was assigned Sir Roger Moore, who played Bond in 7 films between 1973 and 1985. As I was researching Moore's non-Bond roles, I thought it would be interesting to see if we had any similar agent-type roles, and that's when I stumbled across the Wild Geese from 1978. Not only did it fit the time when Moore was actively famous for being James Bond, but it also involved a secret mission, guns, and other big names, or at least big for the time, but we'll talk about that. The Wild Geese stars Richard Burton as a former colonel turned mercenary, Alan Faulkner, who was tasked by a banker to gather a team to rescue an imprisoned president of a southern African nation. President Limbani is being held by a general that wants to execute him and take over. Faulkner builds his team from former army friends and mercenary recruits, including Captain Rayford Jonders, played by Richard Harris, and pilot Sean Finn, played by Sir Roger Moore. On Christmas Day, the team of 50 men parachutes into Zambala, but not everything goes according to plan. The Wild Geese was based off of an originally unpublished novel by Rhodesian Daniel Carney named The Thin White Line. Carney couldn't get the book published until he met with film producer Ewan Lloyd, and Lloyd liked the premise of the book, but Carney said he could only buy the rights if he agreed to get the book published, which of course Lloyd did, with the novel later being renamed The Wild Geese to promote the film. As a further note, there was a sequel made named Wild Geese 2 in 1985, which was based off another Carney novel, The Square Circle. Richard Burton was actually going to reprise the character, but died days before filming started. And instead his character's brother is one of the mercenaries. Roger Moore actually turned down the sequel because he didn't like the script. So instead this film stars Scott Glenn, Laurence Olivier, Patrick Stewart, and Barbara Carrera, who actually starred in the James Bond film Never Say Never Again. So now here on Rear Cuts, we haven't really done a realistic war movie on the podcast before, as far as I can recall. So I wanted to know for you guys, are you a fan of realistic war movies? Any familiarity with them? And if so, how would you rate this one compared to those other ones you've seen? Long pause means I'm guessing no.
I think we've all seen Saving Private Ryan, those types of movies that are their best picture qualities, right? I mean, it's hard to compare it with this one.
Zing.
Zing.
I gotta admit that I have a hard time with British cinema. They make some odd choices. It was the 70s, so there is that. There's a lot of movies from the 70s, even in the States here, that can be off-putting, and it's mostly the way they handled music and scores and stuff. And so the one scene that stands out for me in comparison, like today, it would be like really cool, epic. If there's music at all, it's going to have kind of a dark, edgier undertone to it. But it was they are skydiving, parachuting into South Africa, and rather than having that kind of music or no music at all, they have what I would consider more of like a military circus music vibe going. Mm-hmm. And it's like, this is not cool.
Yes.
Are you watching Gomer Pyle here?
Many flutists died recording that movie.
Oh, goodness.
So, I mean, a lot of it comes down to if they were to take this movie, make better choices with the music and score, I think they could have made this a lot cooler and would have been equivalent to most war films. But it's been a long time since I've really explored that genre in general. So
I have a thought. Rob? I got a beef. All right. And so there was Italian one scene beef? that kind of sunk it for me. Was like, all right. So the scene where the group medic, I think his name was Whitty, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're crossing the river, and he's kind of like the last one to cross, and he hears the rustling in the bush, and it's the opposing army coming after them, and then it turns into a sword fight. It is the worst sword fight I have ever seen. It is so unrealistic. They're like hitting him with knives, and it's like they're hitting him with like a baton because it's not cutting anything, and then he just starts bleeding out of his mouth after like 2 seconds. It was, I was like, this is so bad. I mean, the gun scenes were good, the shooting scenes, even the grenade throwing, which I thought was a little excessive, but there were a lot of grenades. Let's just say that. But the knife scene, I was like, wow. I actually paused it and watched that scene like 2 or 3 times. I'm like, did I miss something? Did like something jump over? Oh no. That was it.
Yeah. I will say I'm not super well versed in war movies. But if this is indicative of war movies, I think I'm gonna not stick to them so much anymore. It's just not my thing. Just not my thing. That's how I'll put it. Like even I like Mike bringing up Saving Private Ryan. Like that's the one that I like remember watching. I watched it a long time ago, and I've never really been like, oh yeah, I want to watch that again. It's just kind of like, yeah, I get it. Cool. I would much rather watch, if we're talking war movies, I would much rather watch a like Hot Shots. Hot Shots Part 2 and Major Payne and those terrible comedies. But yeah,
no. Major Payne is not terrible. Major Payne is a classic.
Even I'm gonna go ahead and say it, and it is shots fired at Rob. It's that I'm not a fan of MASH thing. The MASH that music with like we're all just wearing green. Everything's green all the time in MASH. It's just green.
Hey, Hot Lips just died, so it's I'm gonna fall asleep.
That's what, and I'm not. I mean, I like Alan Alda. I mean, I've seen him in other stuff, and I appreciate him, but like too much camo and green and stuff like that. Not my thing.
Yeah, I get it. And I mean, to go back to what Mike was saying about the music, it definitely, there were times early in the movie, I thought, is this going to be a comedy because of the way that the music was playing? And, everything, even halfway through their journey in Africa, it seemed like, oh, okay, nobody's going to die. It's going to be real happy. And then, of course, the rest of the battle happens and not so happy. but the music still threw me for a loop. And of course, too, opening the movie with, like I said, a James Bond like theme song.
Yeah.
I thought that they were really trying to cash in on that whole Roger Moore era, because I mean that song had nothing to do with anything. Nothing, absolutely nothing.
And with geese.
I mean,
that song was on par with the opening for the made-for-TV movie that we've talked about before, Mazes and Monsters. Like,
it was.
That was the music.
Really was.
It had a feel like that, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, but also to say, like you were saying, too, Saving Private Ryan, that kind of war movie, World War II, this felt... I mean, obviously smaller scale because it's only mercenaries and a group of 50 men, but it also felt like that the importance wasn't coming across like other war movies. It was, we're hired by a banker. Well, why does a banker care? Do we ever really find that out?
He doesn't care.
Not really.
No,
they kind of hint at it that like gets a better deal with the general, but you don't ever find out exactly why that matters so much to the banker that he'd pay millions of pounds to have these guys go in and then get killed.
Yeah, I mean, I have two things to say. The one is it's that in reality, the protagonist, antagonist, it is the banker guy. Like, he's the one that started the problem, and he's the one that ends the problem. He kind of causes all the stuff to happen, and it's bad communication. And so essentially what happens is he just is like, okay, I need some guys that are going to go in and extract this person who was a president, and we're going to get him out of there because I need to get a better deal for copper mining. And I'm going to hire a bunch of mercenaries. These mercenaries are expensive. I'm going to talk to someone else and get a better deal, but I'm still going to send the mercenaries. But then, like, I'm not going to tell them anything. And like, just forget about them. Let them die.
Yeah.
And actually, I forgot my second part. So go ahead.
Yeah, I'll jump. So like what Mike was describing was like the thing. It was like the stakes involved were so convoluted in that way, and like I didn't care about them. Like I didn't know why. Like, okay, a man's life was on the line, right? Like he was the president was like kidnapped or something, and was imprisoned, and I don't exactly remember how he got kidnapped and imprisoned or like what his whole angle was in the first place. But we had to get him out. But like I didn't, because I didn't know why, like what his deal was. I was like, I don't really care. Like other than like, yeah, let's save the guy. He seems like a great guy. But like I didn't, and I mean, part of it might be our terrible American like social science education, just in general in the United States, where we don't know, like Africa's like one singularity in our education of geography and you know, like international politics and stuff. And it could be like that. Like, I don't understand like the intricacies of you know, African political systems and whatnot. And maybe it would be higher stakes to someone in Great Britain who like actually learned that stuff, but still, like, because it was like so convoluted, all this stuff, there's copper mining, there's this guy, I don't know what it's like, you know what I mean? I don't feel the weight of this in a way that it feels as urgent as I think it should in the movie.
Yeah. But, like you were saying, with it being American, I mean, you do lose a lot of that because of our lack of, frankly, education. Because, I mean, for them, it was a huge deal that they'd be filming a movie with South Africa and during apartheid. And so people like Michael Caine refused to be in the movie because of they didn't want to support apartheid and support South Africa. and so there were protests at the opening, even though none of the protesters had seen the movie. And it was just the fact that they were working with the nation that, but here in America, did anybody care? No. Like it had a very limited release in America, so it made very little money here, even though it did really well overseas.
Yeah. What more than I would say other war movies, this has a lot more in common. It's I would say that this is the English equivalent of an American Western. Mm-hmm. It feels similar to, I don't know if you've seen it, it's called The Wild Bunch, classic Western film, where it's kind of like all these guys don't know what to do anymore. The West has changed and kind of left them behind. And that's kind of like what this story is. It's like, here's all these guys that were in military at some point. They all have, the one thing they're really, really good at. And they're just looking for another chance at whatever glory or whatever they're seeking. So I feel like it feels more like a Western than a true war film.
Mm-hmm. Actually, funny you should say that, because Hardy Kruger, who plays the South African, I forget his name, but the one that carries Zimbani on his back all the time. He complained after the movie came out because he said, well, the cinematographer had done a bunch of Westerns and he completely he glossed over and cut out a lot of the whole, like, his character learning about Zimbani and, getting over his racism. And it was because the guy was so good with Westerns that he didn't care about any of that talking. He was like, no, we're not going to have that much.
Yeah. So that makes sense. Cause like I could see where they were going with those moments. They had just like one quiet moment between him and Limbani, and they're talking, and like he kind of relents that, maybe we like each other after all, sort of deal. And that's just the end of it. They just move on. But I think that if they had explored that further, that would have been more interesting, and maybe there would have been more ability to have a dialogue about what was happening in apartheid South Africa. But I feel like part of me feels that this film was mostly supposed to be a cash grab. So,
oh yeah, I actually Richard Burton, I saw an interview that he did when the movie came out, and he flat out said, like, they said, oh, why did you choose to do this movie? And he said, oh, I thought I should finally do something a little more commercial, which, I mean, nowadays doesn't seem very commercial, but for his career, it was. So,
well, and I mean, like that too, like you said, kind of like the West, the movie I thought of, and like I'm going to say it. Like I already told you, war movies, not my thing. And I haven't seen this one, but like I'm aware of it and know like what the basic plot is. And I kept thinking this is just like The Expendables, which was like all those action heroes
Magnificent
from like,
Seven. Yeah. There's
yeah. Like it would go like with the Western thing. And it's like, it's like you get all those people together, you like round up, I mean, dare I say it, it's like the Blues Brothers, we're getting the band back together, and then we're going to go on an event. Like it's got that same kind of like we're rounding up the troops, and but it's like, no, The Expendables is that, like, you're talking about commercial and like all-star, like, all the people in it. It's like that's what that was totally a cash grab. For sure.
No, so I have a thought. So we're talking about being a war film, right, with the focus in Africa and rescuing this president who was, I don't know if they ever really established, kidnapped, whatever it is, right? So when I watched the beginning, obviously started it from the beginning, and there's the scenes in London. I presume it's London, and you've got Faulkner going around trying to find his friends, to recruit them, to help. I'll be honest with you. I thought that first like 30, 40 minutes of it was super interesting. And like, Roger Moore's character, what was his name? Flynn, I believe.
Sean Finn.
Finn. I'm thinking of too much of another film, another great film, but we'll go into that. Yeah, there you go. Well done.
Tron, Flynn lives.
But like when what is it? Rafer and Faulkner are trying to find Finn because he's got a contract out of by the British mafia. I thought that part of the film was really, really interesting. They could have made a whole movie of that, of Finn evading the mafia. I argue that could have been a better film than what it ended up being. That's just me, but it's just my thought.
It's not just you.
And it was very Roger Moore, James Bond-esque too. He's killing mobsters. Yeah, I mean, it definitely had a different feel from everything that they do as mercenaries after that. Mm-hmm. So to me, it was almost like three movies. It was like the beginning where I had no idea what was going on because they were just talking. Then it was like this ensemble kind of thing. And then it was a war movie. And I kept going, oh, I don't know where I'm going, but.
And can I just say the middle movie, as you say, three movies. The first movie was we're getting everyone together, which could have been tightened up a little bit. The second movie was we're going to watch these guys train for 30 minutes. That could have been a montage. That could have been a 2-minute montage. And then got into the war, which was like the longest part, but it took a while to get there.
Yeah. Well, and during that, I remember when they got to their mission and they're extracting him and they get him and now they're at the airfield waiting for the plane to come pick him up and it's coming to land. I was like, this isn't going to happen because the movie's not going to be this short. It's like so obvious.
There's an hour left.
Oh, they're going to be betrayed? They're going to be double-crossed? So it wasn't that surprising.
Well, so with that, as I said earlier, this at the time was considered to be an all-star cast. Richard Burton was nominated for 7 Academy Awards by that time, including
for this film.
Movies like The Robe and no, for movies like The Robe and The Spy Who Came In from the Cold.
For this one film, no.
Yeah, right. Sound direction, Richard Burton. Roger Moore was in the middle of being his James Bond self and coming off the box office smash hit The Spy Who Loved Me. Richard Harris was a big name because of Guns of Navarone, Mutiny on the Bounty. Mm-hmm. But audiences today would remember him better for Gladiator and his role as Dumbledore in the first 2 Harry Potter movies.
I know him best from the Academy Award-winning movie Unforgiven. As English Bob.
There you go.
And he talks about, there's a scene in there where he talks about how you don't hear about anyone assassinating a king or a queen, but a president. And he just kind of chuckles. So I love him. He's great to watch.
Yeah. So, this movie came out about 50 years ago at this point. Does it still feel like an all-star cast movie? Does it feel less grandiose because of the difference in time? Does it feel less because of how many other soldier characters kind of interject in there? Or even maybe just because we're so used to ensemble movies now with huge names, i.e. Marvel. What do you think about it being an all-star cast kind of ensemble movie?
It still feels like you can tell who the stars of the film are. It's very distinct. My personal opinion is that Roger Moore was kind of thrown in because it feels like Richard Burton and Richard Harris are the 2 leads because Richard Harris, I mean, we get a lot of story. We don't know a lot about his background. He has a kid that's in boarding school. The wife is off and doing whatever. And you start to get a lot of sympathy for his character because he doesn't want to go do this. And Richard Burton's is trying to pull him in. And so we kind of get a lot of Richard Burton's character, and Roger Moore, we get a little bit at the beginning, like his character was being developed, but then it felt that during production, they either cut some of his scenes out, he had another project he was doing, or he didn't want to have that large of a role. I don't know.
I can actually answer that for you. He actually specifically asked to have less lines with Burton and Harris, because he literally said, "You don't seriously expect me to act against these guys, do you?"
Oh.
So he literally said, "Cut me down," which this is not something you'd probably hear today, because
you wouldn't even,
they would be like, "Oh, well, then you're going to get less pay." No. Well, don't you want to act with these guys? They're award winners. Well, no, nobody's going to say that today.
You wouldn't. Even back then, 1978 in Hollywood, you're not going to find anyone that's going to do that.
No,
they all want to have the most lines.
Yeah, so maybe it's an English thing.
While we're chatting, I was looking up the cast because, I'll say my 2 cents. I did not think it was a great cast, how did you put it, Jagoda?
Ensemble.
All-star. The time was not in their favor, right? Roger Moore was the recognizable one, at least in today's world, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm looking up the cast, and Eric, I think I have found your Disney connection, and I dare say I'm actually
I already know it.
Does it have to do with one of the actors?
No.
Okay, so the actor who played Jesse, does anyone know what other role he played in?
Which one was Jesse?
Right, there were so many people in this.
Yeah.
So he was I don't know if he was, I think he was English, but he was black. He was like
Okay, yeah.
He was T'Chaka in the Black Panther.
Oh,
so there's your Disney.
John Connie.
So
see, I got another one.
But I think John that that's a piece for all-star cast. If you watch it today, at the time, sure, but now it's no one's other than Roger Moore is incredibly recognizable in the state they are.
And he played as the voice of Rafiki in the Mufasa movie. So that guy is all Disney all the way. He knew how to make money.
That's what you do. But no, that wasn't even...
Forget the Army movies.
That wasn't even my Disney connection. My Disney connection is the director of this film. Also directed Monkeys Go Home or Come Home for Disney. Which is a terrible movie. But Andrew McLaughlin did I always say the Monkeys Go Home, but is it Monkeys Come Home? I got to double check it. But no, he directed that. Don't go watch it. It's not. It's Monkeys Go Home.
I want to watch
Monkeys
it.
Go Home. Yeah, it's about monkeys who are on they live on an olive farm or something, and they help some sort of priest guy pick olives. It's really. It came out. It came out 2 months after Walt Disney died, and I think he was kind of I don't even know what they're doing over here because I'm sick. But they made some stupid ass monkey movie. It's kind of one of those.
Making the monkey movie.
But anyways.
Oh my god.
Yeah. I mean, for me, you say the name Richard Burton, and I say, oh yeah, and then you say, well, that was the guy that married Elizabeth Taylor, right? And did a bunch of Shakespeare stuff, and that's nowadays, I guess, how you think of him. So you don't think of him as the the Robert Downey Jr. of the 70s. So yeah, for me, it really wasn't that much of an all-star kind of cast, but anything you read, say it is. So
I will say you could tell that you're supposed to know who these people are in just the way that like the camera movement and the like reveals. Like you could tell that these were people who would, if you're in a crowded theater, for people who are hyped for this movie, and like when the camera turns and shows this guy at the desk when they're like interviewing people might be like, whoa, yeah, haha, let's clap, this guy's awesome. Or like when Roger Moore comes in, like the way they kind of like show up and they kind of like have a reveal, you could tell that it was supposed to be an all-star cast. It's just like I didn't know half these guys.
Yeah. Okay, all right, now we got to talk about it. Roger Moore's intro. That was the most ridiculous thing. He was walking into a disco in someone's house.
Hey, it was the 70s and cocaine was like powder.
I mean, James Bond would do it.
It was very James Bond.
It was. Well, you know, having talked about the ensemble and the famousness of it, you know, everything goes to bad word here with their plan, and you see all these guys that are supposed to know what they're doing, what their parts are, and it just the plan completely unravels, and we go from what's been a very happy, like, oh, this is such a success of a movie, goes to complete bad word here. So I wanted to know, what did you guys think about the way that plan unravels, and just how the movie ends? Because kind of a downer, huh?
Oh, you could totally see how they were thinking that this was going to be some sort of franchise with especially Richard Burton involved. Because where it leads off, it's basically like, okay, there is this hired mercenary and he's going to get paid no matter what happens. Like even if the client has pulled out or turned on him, he's going to get paid one way or another. And so, I mean, I could totally see a second film starring him just going down and going after another score.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a shame that that he died before that could actually happen. I mean, and to be fair, his reading up on Richard Burton's health during the filming of this movie it was ambitious for them to think he could come for a second movie, because he basically had, like, his entire spine was, I believe they said, crystallized in alcohol because of how much drinking he did before filming the movie. So, like, he had to have all sorts of stuff medically done.
Dang.
So to come and say, oh yeah, why don't we put you in Wild Geese 2? Like, so, all right. I don't think that's smart, but what about you, Eric? Any thoughts on the
I'm going to go back to what I was talking about earlier. I would have much more loved the beginning. It's like, I say more information about why they were doing what they were doing, but there was already a lot of talking at the beginning. I wanted it to be a little snappier. I think I would have appreciated that plan and the twists and turns that happen in the plan more if we had gotten to it quicker. But by that point, I feel like in watching the movie, I was kind of like, this is a long movie, is like what I was feeling at that part. And it's like I just wanted things a little snappier. But like it goes. It has the potential with those twists and turns, and yes, it does kind of go south, and it kind of shows their improv skills, their ability to kind of like adapt on the fly, which is cool because like that's like, that probably should have been more of the movie. I didn't need 30 minutes of like guys running in a circle and climbing a rope. like training. Like we could have just been like, we got everyone together, now we're going on the mission. Like skip the training thing. We don't need that. But yeah, the twists and turns, like I appreciate what they were trying to do there, and like have it go, like it seemed like it was smooth sailing, and then kind of take every turn that it could. We lost a lot of good guys out there, as they say, and he still seems to kind of they still seem to pick up the pieces with what they're left with, and make something happen.
So I have a beef. So how you asked the question, like how the plan unraveled. So I would even go in before how it unraveled. How it was planned out. You're trying to, let's just think about what they're doing. They're trying to break one guy out of a prison, essentially. And they decide to do this with a huge group of people in broad daylight.
Well, they were supposed to parachute in the dark, but I don't know.
I missed. Okay, maybe I missed that. So why did they go in during the day? I don't remember.
I feel like it was like filming limitations on this.
It was. If you look it up, basically, it like there's all sorts of gaffes about, well, he says that we're losing daylight, but it's based on the shadows, it's about noon. And it was supposed to be like, 4 a.m. or something when they start shooting people, and it looks like it's like 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of gaffes about that. I'll do you one better. So when the plane attacks them and starts blowing up the trucks on that bridge, they say, okay, well, we'll go around and meet you on the other side. It's a dry riverbed with a bridge that they could have walked underneath as cover from the plane. Instead, they split up and go wandering off to God knows where to then find a place to cross that is not a dry riverbed. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense there.
That sounds like they sent out their film scout and they're like, okay, we found the perfect bridge. There's a river going under it, but then they went and filmed during a different time of year and it's dry.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And then they couldn't change it at that point. They already scouted locations.
Sure. Well, the river was here.
Yeah. It's for me, the whole idea that then they say, okay, well, we're going to start an insurrection by bringing the president over to his village. If they could do that, wouldn't the village have just broken him out of prison on their own? If they had those weapons? It makes absolutely no sense. So for me, the whole unraveling of the plot was the unraveling of the movie. And it's kind of funny the way I watched it. I didn't know this ahead of time, but I actually watched it in 2 parts because I had some stuff to do. So where I left off was right before that plane attacks and everything starts unraveling terribly. So for me, it was like 2 movies, one where everything was a success, and then one where everything is just garbage. So for me, it was kind of like you had the wild geese and then the geese running from a shotgun. I mean, maybe that's what Wild Geese 2 is.
All I know is the cocaine in that earlier scene was probably real, and some of the team was probably using. So there were some creative ideas.
They just needed to make this like a drug film. It just could be people like
Roger
honestly, Moore's character just knocking off drug dealers. See, that would have been a great film.
That would have been.
Well, to answer to that, Richard Burton and Richard Harris were both notorious, terrible alcoholics at the time. And they actually had to, with Richard Harris, the insurance people for the film said, well, we're going to put half of your salary in escrow, and any bad stuff you do will be deducted from your salary. So he ended up only getting drunk once the entire filming, and so he got his money. And Richard Burton only drank Tab, which had to be imported like thousands of miles into there.
Tab.
Was he Austin Powers?
So then Roger Moore was the only one that was actually like drinking during the filming out of the main stars. And as a funny aside story, the producer drove past where he was staying one time, and he was standing in his nothing but his underwear on the lawn with a hose over his head for no reason. so I kind of wonder if maybe Roger Moore should have been the one with that rule. But
well, at the time, he
at
has a most.
At least they weren't doing the drugs. So
wouldn't stand for that.
No.
And if they were, he'd make you eat them. So.
So with the ending out of the way, obviously we haven't watched Wild Geese 2, so we can't say how things ended up with the later 80s cast. But as per a usual kind of treat here on Rare Cuts, I did want to know if this were done today or within the last even 20 years, who do you think would make up that main 4-person team? Ooh. So start thinking, who should Willem Dafoe play?
Oh goodness. I see. I'm gonna go with.
Are they British? Are they British?
Oh,
or are they,
good point.
I don't think you'd have to have British. I think mercenary film, it could be hired from all over the world.
Because honestly, the biggest thing that was missing from this film that could have taken it to the next level is having the brash American merc hired into this group.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I kind of want Willem Dafoe, but I kind of want him to be, and again, I can't think of the character's name, but the one carrying the president. I want him to have that kind of weird, I'm going to use a crossbow and kill people. I want to see what he would do with that. And then I was thinking Faulkner could be Liam Neeson, because Liam Neeson will just about do any action movie he can. I think the pilot. Well, actually, I think the pilot could be Pedro Pascal. I think he would just have that kind of like I'm being stupid, so I'm going to get hunted by the mafia, but I'm still a good soldier. I think he could pull that off. But then I honestly, I think for genres, I think it would be interesting to have Idris Elba. I think he would be a good tactician. I don't know.
So what I would just do is make it Expendables 5, kind of repackage the plot, make it a little tighter, make it more explosions, and more all that. So then you'd have to have Stallone in the lead role, because he's always the lead role in that. And then, I mean, from there, the other ones. So this is the list of the guys who have been in all of the Expendables movies. We've got Stallone, Jason Statham, Dolph Lundgren, and Randy Couture, the famous from wrestling. But those guys are the 4 that have stayed true and been in all of the Expendables movies. And like I said, this is just going to be Expendables 5. It's just that we're going to loosely base the plot of Expendables 5 on this movie, and just slot those guys in. Terry Crews was in that. We could I just love Terry Crews. We could work him into this somehow. Expendables 5.
I don't know. For me, that's too much muscle, not enough brain. I mean, Expendables is it's its own thing. Let's say.
Sure.
I don't know. Though I do like Terry Crews. I will say that. He's a fun guy.
And he's not a mushroom. Fun guy. Never mind.
Jeez. Always with the jokes. I will say one funny little tidbit going off of this topic is that American producers that were working along with the company wanted Roger Moore's part to go to O.J. Simpson. It is the worst idea I've ever heard.
Well, in hindsight, especially
in hindsight, but even at the time, I'm like, you're gonna have all these British guys and then have O.J. Simpson.
But that would have been that thing Mike was talking about, the missing like American guy. You know what I mean? Like that element.
But here's the kicker. They still wanted him to be Irish. They still wanted him to be Sean Finn as an Irish guy.
We were robbed.
I mean, I guess. Could he do the Irish accent? No.
What year was the first Terminator film released?
Terminator was
the original,
like 84.
84. So the reason I bring that up is if you watch the Arnold Schwarzenegger documentary on Netflix, he makes a comment that originally the producers or the whatever it was, instead of Michael Biehn to play Kyle Reese, they wanted OJ to play Kyle. Was there like something going on with OJ and like his agents of like trying to like get him into films at this time? Because like this it's just kind of something that clicked in my head when you said OJ, like trying to be cast in like a major action film. Weird.
That's so weird.
He got in Naked Gun, so
yeah. And then he got in all kinds of trouble.
Then he got
nothing else happened. Just quick, I mean, I agree completely with Liam Neeson for Faulkner's role. I think that's a perfect role for him. For Finn, I think I might try Cillian Murphy. And then for Janders, I think Gary Oldman would be good at that. It's kind of more mental based and thinking and planning.
Now here's an interest. I'm trying to think who he. All right, so there's a handful of actors I think could fit into the film. And now maybe the question is who they could play. The Rock could easily be in there.
Why do we always have to?
And then I think someone who this guy always talking about The Rock, but then someone I think could fit in, and it would fit like the age group. Would be like someone like Samuel L. Jackson.
Nick Fury.
I could see him playing. Yeah. I'm trying to think who. I could see him playing.
I want to see him playing all three characters, and he has like some sort of personality disorder.
That's what you say about every movie. Willem Dafoe's going to be everyone.
Well, this is different. This would all just be the one character, and we'd see him like talking to himself as different characters.
So but he is one guy.
So they said one guy with 50 personalities.
It'd be great.
I think it might be time to score.
Like those certain criminals that were trying to score with the cocaine.
Oh goodness. All right. Here I'm just gonna leave it here. No. Here is our scoreboard. We got to give this thing the score, but we do have I do want to remind everyone we've got a new production value slot there, which this is the first time we're using production value. So do you know what that means?
No.
It's going to be very hard to get a lower score than St. Elmo's Fire.
That's my hope.
from this point forward, because there's a whole extra column. So if you get less than St. Elmo's Fire, anyways, I'm just throwing that out there for everybody. St. Elmo's Fire will still continue to have the lowest score, I'm sure, because of that. But anyways, so the new scoring, we've got I'm going to run it up, run it down. We've got 3 people giving 5 or up to 5 in 4 different categories. So now we have the highest total could be 20 per person, which would make the highest score available now would be a 60.
What's the lowest number I can give?
I mean, we've never given a 0. We've never given a 0, but is a 0 a possibility?
I guess so. It's kind of
I say
it would have to be like he would have to say that I picked Roger Moore for my film, and then Roger Moore was not in the film.
That's true.
Or it wasn't a part of the production even.
Or I watched the movie and then my eyes started to bleed and I started to throw up. So my enjoyment was a 0.
As long as that was caused by the movie.
Yes.
If that just happened as like a freak accident, I don't think you could hold the movie accountable.
I had to call the ambulance. So I'm giving it a 0.
So Mike, we have you first up on the docket.
All right.
For your score.
For rarity, I'm not familiar with a lot of British films. Like, if I'm gonna watch a British film, it's gonna be in the Hammer horror series. Like, that's more my jam. But taking into consideration the names that are involved in this, and I would say that this is probably a 4 for rarity for me. Just because it does have some really well-known actors. But again, I would have never found it because I wouldn't have looked for it.
Fair. That's fair.
Theme. Roger Moore is the theme, but I think I'm going to give this one a 3. Mostly because he's not like a main actor. He's playing third chair to the other 2. It does meet the theme, but I think I wanted more Roger Moore.
They gave you a Bond theme song. Come on now.
Production value. I mean, the nighttime dive-in before dawn was clearly daytime. And they're trying to stop down, but they didn't do it properly. Like a lot of older movies did that, where they would shoot nighttime scenes during the day because they didn't have the ability to expose the film properly. So they would stop it down and make it look darker, and you could tell. This one seemed like they didn't really even try to do that much. It was just kind of a little bit grainy. They had the explosions, those were convincing. So I think for production value, I have to give it a 3. Enjoyment, again, war films aren't like my biggest thing. And British war films are, I think, below where I would actually enjoy war films. But I did enjoy it more than St. Elmo's Fire, so I'm going to give it a 3.
All right. We have some of the as I'm getting in here, we had some of the same thoughts other than St. Elmo's Fire, but not exactly the same score. So for rarity, I kind of leaned further into that idea of like it was a rare choice for us in that we hadn't heard of it before. But if you were in England in the 70s, it was probably a pretty big deal. So not as rare over there. So I kind of like I ended up like smack dab in the middle with a 3, to kind of balance that out. Like it's a big, but like big blockbustery kind of thing for what it was, but it wasn't necessarily for us a big blockbuster. All-star cast kind of thing. Theme wise, I'm right there with Mike too. His Roger Moore's scenes, I think we kind of agreed with this earlier, are some of the best ones. And I think had his scenes not been some of the best ones, I would not have wanted more, like, you know what I mean? But it left me wanting more of that. Like Rob said, if it was just his scenes, it would have been great. Also, if we would have cut out some of the fat, his scenes would have then had shined a little bit more, and I would have liked to see them shine there. For production value, I kind of waffled on one. I'm going to disagree with Mike here, and this is where I'm going to give it a 4, because I mean, there were I do, and this is one thing I love about James Bond movies, and this happened here too. I love a movie with a lot of different settings. Like when I see a movie and they're like in a bunch of different places and they go through a bunch of different things, I feel like I got my money's worth. When you watch a movie like The Room and there's only like 2 scenes and one of them is really bad, like green screen, you're left feeling like you need more. But like in this movie, we got a lot of locations, and a lot of them, like, they had to fly to locations, they had to scout locations during the rainy season and then find out that they were filming during the dry season. And so there was a lot of when we say it's 70s production value, like they had some oomph there, you know what I mean? They had some production going on. That was, you know, we had some big budget moments. For enjoyment though, I have to give it a 2. Like I said, they needed to cut a lot, in my opinion, and it's also just not my jam. So that being said, I got a 12. Yes, thanks, Mike, for doing my math for me. But yes, so Rob L., you got to bring us home here.
All right, I'm bringing you home. All right, so I can see it both ways, what Mike and Eric said, but I'm kind of leaning a little more towards Mike's end. You look at it in the guise of today, right? It was a big budget film, right? But if somebody said, "Hey, have you seen the Wild Geese?" They'd be like, "The who?"
You mean down at the pond?
Yeah.
You mean in that Roddy Piper movie? Is that what you're talking about?
Exactly. I think people would be like, I don't know what you're talking about. But so I'm leaning towards a 4 on the rarity. Thank you for filling the numbers. Theme, I'm in line with you 2 other gentlemen. I wanted more Roger Moore. Now, obviously, he was one of the title characters, right? You mean, you look at the cover of the film and all the press stuff. He's very clearly part of it, but he's not the main character. I mean, you could argue he's not even the second main character. He's like one of the major supporting characters at best. So I'll give it a 3. He's there, and he's a big portion of the film, but he's certainly not a main character. Production value. Now, I gave my rant earlier about the knife fight. That was a real stinkeroo. So I'm gonna.
He wanted real stabbing.
A man was stabbed in the filming of this. That's Rob. Well, no.
I want Jason level stabbing. Come on.
Yeah. But like, not even the stab, that like, not where a Witty, I think it was his name, where he stabbed the guy. Not that one. That okay, sure. But like, where they were hitting him with the knives, and I mean, it looked like they were slapping him with like rubber, like a rubber pool noodle or something. There, I don't know what they were doing. So anyway, I give a lot of the other.
They had guns. They had guns.
They had guns, and that's why they're getting a 3.
They made a choice.
So production value for a 3. Enjoyment. So I will be for. Similarly, Jagoda. I did watch this in like bunches. I think I watched it in 3 different sittings. And not going to lie, I fell asleep during the second one. So that gives an idea of my level of enjoyment. So I'm going to give it a number 2. So
number 2. Oof.
A number 2.
That's what he had said, a number 2. That is a 12 also.
It gives it a solid 12.
All right. So now it looks like we've got a 37.
37.
Which is not comparable to anything else that we've done because it's the new scoring system. So we're going to put 37 on there. We can't necessarily compare it apples to oranges. And I have to find the button to switch to the next guy over here. Where's that at? All right, let's try that. There we go. So,
which
37.
If you put that in old scoring terms, that would be a 27.
So it still beat St. Elmo's Fire in old scoring conversion. So there you go. It's still one. Where is we got to get to
where Jagoda got Roger Moore as his Bond to find a film in. I got Daniel Craig. So I have selected another British film, amazing, British crime thriller from 2004 named Layer Cake.
All right. So we'll have to, where can we even find Layer Cake?
You can find
other
Layer
than your
Cake.
Local public library.
Also, great source of materials. But you can find it on Pluto for free. And then, of course, a number of pay sites if you so desire. But it is available on Pluto. As of today, it is available on Pluto for free.
But not tomorrow, so you better watch it fast. No, just kidding.
You watch it right now. It's expiring in an hour.
But it does have a pretty decent Rotten Tomato score even. So we'll see if that holds up.
And I do like me some cake, so I hope there's a lot of cake in it.
You're in for a big
enjoyment. There's no cake in it. And Eric, you give it like a 1. I wanted
false
more cake.
advertising. False advertising. No. All right. So go ahead and watch some Layer Cake. Eat some Layer Cake while you're watching Layer Cake. And meet us next time on the Rare Cuts Media Society.
I'm definitely planning on chowing down on a giant piece of cake during the next episode.